What's up, gangos? Today I just want to talk about the idea. I was thinking about it in the shower, the idea of a black swan. And the idea of a black swan, it comes in the form of when you're negotiating, and every conversation you have is a negotiation. If you guys are if the other party wants something or you want something, it's a negotiation, right? And I remember reading about it in a book, I Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And when I was reading the chapter, it was like, this kind of doesn't make that much sense until you actually put it into action yourself. And it might be I did it by accident, and I realized, oh my god, this was a black swan. Because essentially what the black swan does is it changes the whole dynamic of the conversation. It gets the other party completely in your favor because of the information that you presented, the black swan, right? And the term black swan comes because they were once thought to be mythical creatures, because what scientists back in the day would only see white swans everywhere, and then they never thought of the idea of a black swan, and one day they saw it, and it was super rare to see it, right? And so it was a discovery of something like that. That's why they labeled it, because it was a discovery of something unforeseen, surprising, presumed to be impossible. And so when you find a black swan in a conversation, in an argument, it completely changes everything. And in most negotiations, right, like this is what he was talking about in the book, there's information about your counterpart that you know for sure, like their name or offer. There's things that you know are exist or are probable, like the possibility of your counterpart leaving the negotiation altogether. Finally, there are things you don't know that you don't know. Unimaginable information that would completely twist the outcome. Those are the black swans, unknown unknowns, right? And it sounds so cool, like, even when you just like think about it that way. Like when you're in an argument, obviously there's things that things that you know can happen. There's things that you completely don't know, like the outcome at all. You couldn't predict it at all. And if you're like me and you overthink before you go into any conversation, you practice it in your head or whatever, the unknown unknowns are kind of impossible to predict or even assume could happen, because it's all dependent on the information that comes about within that argument, right? And so these are typically, for you to find the black swan, you should have the negotiations in person, because it's easier to like read body language, see how they're reacting to the information. It's easier to build rapport in person rather than like over text or over email, where you can't really get a good feel or vibe of the negotiation, right? But when I did find the black swan, the way I did it, I did do it through over text, but I will say the text was constant back and forth. It wasn't like text, wait, and then just reply one. No, we were both just conversing the whole time. We stayed on the text, right? So I think that helped a lot, because it created better flow for the conversation, allowing me to ask more questions, which is a very key thing you need to do. If you want to practice finding the black swan, it is easier to do in real life, because people tend to reveal a lot more information in real life rather than over text, where they're like overthinking and they can kind of control or limit what they say or whatever. So if you really want to practice it, you should do it in person. But I feel like it's really hard to just get into like some random place to start negotiating with someone. So what I did was I would talk to random girls on Tinder, right? And I would think of like a crazy ass that I wanted, and I wouldn't lay it out completely. I would have to essentially, just like in sales, right, where you're like trying to talk to a client or trying to get them to buy what you're selling, you need to build rapport first, right? And that rapport can be anything, right? Even you saying hi, hello, you offering a water, it completely sets the tone, right? Because now you just giving them water has them trust you a little bit more. You saying hi makes it feel like an interaction between friends rather than a buyer and a producer and a consumer or whatever, right? So that's what you need to do, right? Build rapport, and you're building rapport and you're not really selling anything, so it should be actually easier for you to practice building rapport, right, with these girls, if you want to use the same tactic that I used, right? And so you talk to these girls, you have a desire in your mind or whatever, it's some crazy ass, it doesn't matter, because you're not really gonna go through with it. It's just for context of the situation, right? And you build rapport, you transition into the thing that you want slowly but surely, but the whole time you're building lots and lots of questions, right? And so when I did it with this girl, me and her are talking this whole time. I'm like seeing what she likes, what she wants, this and that, how I can how I can help her per se, right? And so when they talked about it in the book, right, when you want a black swan, you want leverage. And you want leverage in any negotiation. You want leverage in every facet of life, quite frankly, because it's just so helpful, right? And so there's three types of leverage: positive leverage, negative leverage, and normative leverage, right? Positive leverage is when you have something that they want, right? So you can just kind of offer to them per se. Negative leverage sounds almost like a threat where it entails making the other person know that you have the ability to make them lose something, like a threat, saying like you'll take a family member away, or something crazy. You don't really need to use negative leverage. You probably shouldn't. It sounds too vicious and vulgar. Positive leverage is good. You can just, it's the ability to make their desire come true. And normative leverage is using the other person's sets of rules and moral principles to your advantage, right? So the more rapport you build, the more you understand how they think and how they operate, and then you can essentially use this against, I don't want to say against them, but against them, right? To make them realize what they're missing out on if your desire can satisfy your need and their need, and it aligns with their sets of rules and moral principles, right? And so I'm talking to this girl, and I think I kind of used all three of them. I used positive leverage because I knew what I had the thing that she wanted. Normative leverage because every time she would talk this and that, right, I would say, oh, this would help the thing that I was offering, or the thing that I wanted. I would have been like, oh, this is going to help you in the long run, this and that, or whatever, right? You could do that. And the loss aversion, I didn't really use that, like the negative leverage, but I felt like if you could even just tell them that instead of using negative leverage, you should use the idea of scarcity and urgency, right? So scarcity is like saying that it's a limited resource and not going to always be available, and urgency is almost rushing them to make a decision because it's urgent. Again, it won't be there forever, right? So instead of using negative leverage, I think you should just use urgency and scarcity. It's the same thing, right? It starts getting the brain to be like, oh my God, this is not available forever. I need to work. I need to act on this now, right? And that's negative leverage. Positive leverage is having the thing, and normative leverage is just essentially kind of like regurgitating the words they're saying to them back to them for them to realize what's actually like at stake, if that makes sense. And if you can do this, it starts getting them to realize, because I will tell you, humans are emotional creatures, and you would think most humans are rational and logical. They are not. So even if they're saying one thing, they could mean another thing. And even if the thing that you have can help them or improve their life somehow, they need it to be completely explained to them detail by detail, because people don't like thinking, right? They just want to act on emotion and feeling or whatever, right? They want to feel good. And so once you can make it completely clear and they have clarity of what you're giving them, that's when everything changes, right? I just want you to remember, perception is key, right? You're having a conversation where you want something, or you're trying to sell something, or whatever the case may be. You can control it. So the best way to control it is honestly by not talking a lot, ask a lot of questions, because if they're revealing information, you don't have to be revealing information, right? And obviously there's like things to this where you can still obviously say the things that you need to say, keep the conversation going and flowing, and build trust by also revealing information, right? But get them to talk, figure out their desires, figure out their emotions, figure out their logic, figure out their rules, sets of principles, everything, right? And this whole idea is the beginning phase. It's where you build rapport. And in building rapport, you need to be hyper aware and alert of what they're saying, truly understand what they're coming from. Take all the knowledge you have based on the schemas that, if this is like a girl, right, you know what girls typically want. If this is a person who wants a car, you know what people who typically want cars are, right? And sell them the dream, right? That's the whole idea of like sales, right? Like when somebody comes in to buy a car, right, you're not gonna be like, yeah, you should buy a car because you need it, right? No, you have to tell them the idea. Like if you work at Porsche, be like, think of how your friends and neighbors would see you. Think of how cool you would look pulling into your driveway and all your neighbors coming out to look at your car. Think of how you would feel when everybody's taking a picture of your car. Think of how you would feel when people are asking you what you do for a living. Like you would feel good, right? And so that's the whole idea. Sell the dream, and you figure out what their dream is through the questions you ask them and their answers. And through their answers, people reveal their information. People reveal so much within what they say, and what they say what they think about, and what they think about is what they want. And if you can get them to talk as much as you can, and you're hyper alert and you're hyper aware, and you know how knowledge connects, then you can be the one to connect all the dots, right? And you offer them this sort of thing or entity, whatever you want to call it. Even if people reveal information through their speaking, they speak upon based on what they're thinking. And if you can figure out what they're thinking and what their true desires are, where their feelings are, what they want, you can be the one to connect the dots and close the sale, right? And you can also get what you want, because you're providing value in the sense of helping them get there closer to their desire based off what they told you, because they will tell you the truth, right? They're revealing the information about themselves, right? Connect the dots, figure out the black swan, offer it to them, and you'll see how crazy the dynamic completely shifts and switches. Because once you figure out the black swan, once you figure out this thing based off everything they said, that can you can say the craziest offer, right? Something that almost makes no sense, and you would not be able to get this sort of offer bought through just a regular conversation if you just like advertised it or marketed it or whatever, right? But because you built this rapport and you connected the black swan to what they desire, you can almost ask for anything and they'll say yes, because they're just ready, because they sold themselves, you qualified them, they sold themselves, and it all just connects. So it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling once you figure out that you figured out the black swan, because it's like if you're into negotiation and arguments and winning the argument or whatever and getting what is it that you want per se, figuring out the black swan gets you to win this like so quick. It completely changes everything. And it's like some argument people will like have to like be like, oh yeah, take some, lose some, like they split it, right? But when you have the black swan on your side, there's no splitting. You get exactly what is that you want, and you completely end the conversation. You win. And I don't want to say you'll win, but that's the case. Like you can win negotiations by getting exactly what you want, and you can practice this, right, in any argument per se. And if you want to try the tactic like I did, go on Tinder, talk to some girls, have some crazy ask in your head, and build a rapport, slowly lead into that, and see if you can figure out information. The more you do it, the easier it is to figure out, because humans are very similar, right? So if you're constantly talking to girls, you'll see what girls constantly want and like, and you kind of build information time and time again, right? So the thing you use on the first girl that you like, the thing that you use on the 10th girl, you wouldn't know how to use on the first girl, but you've been building it from the first girl to the second girl. You're like, oh, girls like this, oh, they think like this, whatever, right? And then you're able to connect it all together. And it works with everything. Like if you wanted to get promotions, you would have to talk to multiple bosses, and on the 10th boss, you'll have a much better negotiation than the first one. The first one, you might not even be able to identify the black swan, but over time, you're like, hey, you know what? They all think like this. I could probably negotiate this way and offer this, blah, 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 whatever, right? Learn to negotiate. It's a key part of life. Learn how to communicate effectively. Never split the difference. Read that book. It's a good book. And what I said, find the black swan, changes the whole dynamic. And in the end, you'll win.